All right, folks, I'm back. I'm back. I know it's been a long hiatus. I have to take a few, have to take care of several things. um, you know, they personal, so I'm not gonna go any further than that. Um, but they need to be addressed. So, um, still doing the final touches on the latest personal situation, and so this is why I said this a while back that I'm gonna start setting up a Cash App and whatnot. So you see the Cash App at the bottom. I don't care you put in $1 or $1 trillion. If you want to help out this channel, be free to send in your donation. Oh yes, big task at hand. Yes, that's right. Happy New Year. Hope all is well. Hope this year goes great for you. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping right now. This year should be going great for me. So hopefully around the summer of this year or the spring or summer next year, the gears going to keep well, not the gears, all 12 cylinders going to get rolling. But yep, so I'll take care of a few family situations that's going on. I think in the month of December, I'm not December, November, and I caught a cold. Actually, I had that 2-in-1 cold that was in California that migrated to New York. So I got rid of the first half, and now I'm dealing with the second half. I'm not congested, I'm not nasaling no more, which thank goodness I can't stand that feeling. But every now and then you might hear me cough or hawk out a phlegm. Don't panic. I barely blow. No, it's not COVID. So, and then I took time. Yeah, technically I got sick just before my fucking birthday. Just I think 2 weeks before my birthday. My birthday already passed over a week ago. So yep. So and now all I did was just sat back and watch the news. And this I'm gonna go into I got a screen share, but I'm not on the actual link. So I'm gonna physically go on the link and read to you of this stupid sycophant bojangling dancing minstrel, slow foot, half foot jackass Kevin McCarthy. And he should be ashamed of himself because he went in the back room. Hey, let's actually physically for me to go on the link. Made a backroom deal with the Democrats. He did. Now, side note, the speaker only gets a 2-year term. Okay? That's it. Their life expectancy as speaker is 2 years. And I guarantee you this job, and I saw the whole thing the other day on Wednesday. Because other than that, Hakeem Jeffries would have won. Hakeem Jeffries was only short of 4 points, 4 to 6 points, give or take. So he made a backroom deal with one of the Republicans and the Democrat to get him to Speaker of the House. And they just did it just so. Well, Congress was still being in session, by the way, just so they could get the newly elected and re-elected politicians, both, well, the House, the Senate, as well as the governorship, state legislators, county officials, and whatnot, all reinstated or stated for the first time, what I'm getting at. So they couldn't have that. If it wasn't for that, to be honest with you, Hakeem Jeffries would have been in that position. But let's get on with the article. Kevin McCarthy's job just got harder. And becoming Speaker, he may have made it difficult to do anything else. I agree. He won this like the day after the anniversary, January 6th. Side note, the motherfucker didn't even have the nuts to show up in the ceremony for the people that died of the insurrection. Right? Yeah. If Representative Kevin McCarthy for California didn't have a lucky number before, it's surely 15 now. Just after midnight on Saturday morning, that's right, he had 15 and Jeffries had 12. Yeah, I think it was a 215 with McCarthy versus Jeffries 212. The House Representatives finally voted to make McCarthy Speaker of the House on the 15th ballot. That means 15th attempt. Okay, this guy lost 14 times. Hold on. I'm going to mute my phone. I don't want nobody to call me. Lost 14 times. People forget that in 48 hours, he lost a total of 6. In 48 hours alone. That was embarrassing. This was the most embarrassing one. He's basically a paper speaker because he had to make a backroom deal with the Democrats, contrary to belief. And side note, on top of that, I know I'm digressing here, but it's related to the subject. A speaker cannot be party loyal. Let me say that again. A speaker of the House cannot be a party loyal. They have to be neutral. That's right. So there's going to be, for those that vote Republican, don't think you're going to have policies working in favor. I'm going to do a side live stream breaking down the Republican Party because it's not the same party as of Abraham Lincoln, not even close. And you guys should not be uplifting Abraham Lincoln either. Like I said, we'll have to do a collab video and get some links to show you about the Republican Party. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did a collab video talk about the Democrat Party, but the Democrats that I was talking to back then became your modern day Republicans, which technically are your modern day Dixiecrats. Enough said. Anyway, so if the resolution of the historic multi-day stare down with conservative hardliners who will now wield tremendous power in the House, not necessary. For a while, McCarthy looked like he might never gain the Speaker's gavel at all. At the height of the opposition to him, between the 3rd and 11th ballots, 20 Republicans vote for a non-McCarthy candidate. That's right, putting him far away from the majority of the votes necessary to win. As I wrote on Wednesday, that just passed, those dissenters were among the most conservative and most anti-establishment Republicans in the House. The chart below uses incompetence DW nominate scores or ideology scores based on their congressional voting records. So to plot them along two axes, the left versus right, which that's an old European term in the French, which we call Victorian era. and the pro-establishment versus the anti-establishment. Notice how McCarthy's opponents are all in the lower right part of the chart. Opponents. Keyword. It's almost like they were all their own political party and more on that in a bit. Oh, yeah, and this is it right here. This is McCarthy vote right here. You got conservatives. You got to vote against McCarthy. Anti-establishment. And Andrew Biggs. Matt Gaetz. Abstain from voting. This was an embarrassing turnout, to be honest with you. So anyway, I already broke that down. So on Thursday night and Friday morning, going to Friday morning, this past Friday, so McCarthy struck a deal with his detractors, and 13 of those who had previously voted for a non-McCarthy candidate came over to his side. Therefore, hence, he's a paper tiger or paper champion. On the 12th ballot on Friday afternoon, from there, McCarthy chipped away his remaining opposition throughout Friday, eventually coming just one vote shy on the dramatic 14th ballot. That's right, he lost on the 14th. When Representative Matt Gaetz stubbornly withheld his vote even after a heated confrontation. That's true. So I saw that fiasco. On the following ballot, on McCarthy's remaining opponents, caved, though not all the way. They voted present and essentially an abstention that lowered the threshold of McCarthy needed to win. In the end, he received, I meant to say 216, my bad. But that was a majority of, was it 428 ballots cast for the candidates, thus ending the fifth longest speaker election in the U.S. history by number of ballots, the fourth longest by the number of days, and the longest no matter how you slice it before the Civil War. Now, this was the longest speaker election since 1860. That's when the second insurrection happened under Abraham Lincoln when he was inaugurated that January. So before Abraham Lincoln was Nathaniel Banks from 1855 to 1856. Yep, 2 years. Well, actually 1 year. He only served as speaker for 1 year. That's embarrassing. 62 days. That's how long that shit lasted. 62 days. That's the longest in history. 133 ballots. Hollow Cobb. 1849. 20 days. 63 ballots. 1859 through 1860. William Pendleton. 59 days, 44 ballots. That's insane. And 1820, John Taylor, 3 days, 22 ballots. But yeah, 1855 to 1856, that was the longest. And McCarthy, 2023, 5 days and 15 ballots. That's the longest in modern day history, by the way. But about that deal, in order to achieve his decade-long ambition, McCarthy made several concessions that will weaken the speakership and strengthen his right-wing anti-establishment antagonists. That's right. One point of the contention had been the number of representatives it would take to trigger a motion to vacate the chair. Essentially, a no confidence vote in the Speaker. Previously, it would have been taking the majority of the Republican caucus to call for that vote. But McCarthy was reportedly agreed to lower that threshold to just one number. That sounds like a big change, but it's really a reversion to how things used to be. Historically, one member has been the normal threshold to trigger a motion to vacate. It was that way until 2019. That's right, when the Democrats raised it. And all those years, the only time the motion actually led to vote was in 1910. So that was over 100 years ago. Well, actually 113 years ago to be exact. Although an unsuccessful motion was also filed in 2015, although the motion might get more use in today's contentious Congress, it would still require a majority vote of the whole House to actually oust the Speaker. That's right. Meaning that 5 Republicans will have to agree with all 213 Democrats for McCarthy to lose his job. Wow. And I guarantee you, McCarthy's only going to last 1 year. I mean, I said 1 term. I meant to say 1 term. A more meaningful concession is McCarthy's reported agreement to reverse 3 seats for hardcore conservatives on the House Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is one of the most powerful committees in the House, setting the rules of debates and choosing which pieces of legislation to bring up to vote, and even rewriting the legislation that has already passed another committee. If the Rules Committee maintains its traditional partisan composition, 9 members of the majority party, 4 of the minority, then it could have 6 McCarthy-aligned Republicans, 3 insurrected Republicans, and 4 Democrats. Insurgent Republicans and 4 Democrats, which means that McCarthy-aligned Republicans would constitute a minority on the committee. Think about it. In the committee, the Republicans would still be a minority. I keep telling people 78% of the U.S. population are either progressive or Democratic. The vast majority, doesn't matter if they elderly, young, middle-aged, they tend to be either Democratic or progressive, or somewhere in the middle. Not conservative. That's a myth. And not Republican. That's a myth. I'm going to get into that in my live stream, on my future live stream discussing that. So, if the Rules Committee maintains the tradition, okay, I always said that. Yep, okay. Would still be okay. In the words of the one conservative activist, that would effectively make the Rules Committee a European-style coalition government. Wow. Where the hard right bloc is like a third party, and McCarthy and his allies will have to negotiate with them or Democrats to get anything done. This, in turn, could make it more likely that the federal government shuts down and or default on its debts in 2023. insurgent wing of the GOP was at the center of the government shutdown fight in 2013. That's right. And the debt ceiling fought in 2011. That was under Barack Obama's administration, both 2013 and 2011. And it took 2 years for it to recover. So in 2013, it recovered, and then they tried to do it again. Anyway, and McCarthy has agreed to fight for their preferred spending cuts here in 2013. But of course, nothing can become law without buy-in from the Democrats who still control the Senate and the White House, who are about as ideologically far removed from conservative hardliners as it gets. So this week's fight in the Congress could stage other even higher stakes ones, and now McCarthy is the lucky duck who gets to be in the middle of them. That's right, and he has to be bipartisan. He has to be bipartisan. He has to be neutral. There's no way around it. He can't just, okay, I got to think about my Republican counterpart. No, he has to play the neutral role, or he won't make it but that one term. It's that simple. Hold on a second. Just oh. All right. Just look at something. So now we'll do another screenshot presentation. Open the tab. And here we go. All right. In 2022, the IRS went after the very poorest taxpayers. Despite $80 billion in new funding, the agency is living up to its repertoire of hassling low-income taxpayers over the rich people. Yeah, you know why, right? They thank you to Republicans. On Wednesday, Syracuse University Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, or TRAC, released data provided to it by the Internal Revenue Services, or IRS, on audits performed by the agency in the fiscal year 2022. Despite the infusion of new funding embarked for the IRS via last year's Inflation Reduction Act, I guess they were referring to 21, the agency continued historic trends of hassling primarily low-income taxpayers, like us, with relatively few millionaires and billionaires getting caught up in the audit suite. The taxpayer class with unbelievable high audit rates, 5.5 times virtually everyone else, were low-income wage earners taking the Earned Income Tax Credit, reported TRAC, noting that the poorest taxpayers are the easiest marks in an era when IRS increasingly relies upon correspondence audits, yet doesn't have the resources to assist taxpayers or answer their questions. Funny. But you got guys like Donald Trump that barely pay everything. And last time I checked, he's negative $4.3 billion as of this year, or as of last year. As of December of last year, that just passed a week ago. A week ago. 8 days ago, to be exact. What's today's date? Yep, 8 days ago. In fact, if one ignores the fraction of ordering a millionaire through simply sending a letter through the mail, the odds that millionaires receive a regular audit by the revenue agent is only at 1.1%, was actually less than the audit rate of the target lowest income wage earners, whose audit rate was at 1.27%. The Inflation Reduction Act passed in August 2022, just this past year. So that was 4 months ago, folks. Well, 5 months ago now. Directed $80 billion worth of new funding over the next decade to IRS agents so it could hire 87,000 new agents or new workers, purportedly to better target millionaires and billionaires on scofflaws. The Biden administration and the credulous journalists claim that this would in no way increase the audits for those making under $400,000 a year annually. Suspect assurance not provided within the text of the actual bill. This increase targeted. Supporters insist, but this ignores how the IRS incentives work and how agency-wide reform might be too heavy of a lift. That's right. I think the IRS needs to be audited themselves, but that's no here and there, right? Correspondence audits, which are conducted via mail and are typed frequently used when interacting with the poorest of the taxpayers, are much easier other than the other types of audits. That's incredible, right? Plus, the earned income tax credit is easy to get wrong. It's by design, folks. The Bipartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that the new hires with experience in the field would take almost 3 years of ramp-up time, with more junior new hires take longer. The lag time between 2022's infusion of funding and legitimately increased capacity will be enormous. If the agency can even snag the best in the industry when TurboTax and H.R. Block would surely be swelling their own ranks. It makes sense that given the dearth of experienced auditors not likely to be fixed soon, the agency would rely on the easiest and least time-consuming types of audits, which is correct. But be suspicious of any idea that an infusion of cash would solve the long-standing problems within the IRS. This is, after all, the agency that sent $1.1 billion in child welfare payments to the wrong people over the course of merely 5 months during the pandemic lockdown. So that was an 18-month period, by the way, folks. It's the agency that would hack back in 2015, resulting in a personal information of more than 700,000 taxpayers being compromised. That's true. It's agency that has been foolishly going after Americans or more since 2007. Never mind the fact that many of them are middle-class expats, not folks with yachts in the Mediterranean. And it's a leaky agency that enables the richest Americans, citizens, U.S. citizens, intimate financial information to be thumbed through by ProPublica readers. It will take more than a little cash to fix this, and the IRS's competence and tendency increase. So too will the tendency of the vast infrastructure of accountants and lawyers hired by the rich to crazily minimize their tax burdens. That means the rich people don't want to fucking pay for this shit. And they're going to have to pay. Fuck, if I'm rich, I'm going to have to be paying. But you got more money. You got more pushing for the cushion. I don't. Side note, there's no such thing as middle class. That died during the Nixon administration. Anyway. So some libertarians, oh my God. That's why I gotta do a book about libertarians and how much of a scam they are. They actually the major reason why we gotta bust up IRS. We know the Federal Reserve is busted up, but the IRS, oh my God. Go back in the 1970s and read up how the so-called Libertarian Party and Libertarian movement started. Anyway, Ron Paul was part of that. Though some libertarians may argue such an agency ought not to exist in the first place and share its relative aptitude at going after well-to-do, it's decidedly absurd that the agency taxpayers just fed $80 billion to has for another year continue its assault on the poor. All right. That's the end of that. And now, hey. What's up, Fancy Clutch? The hate against the passport bros is crazy. I'm trying to get my passport right now. I'm doing research, but if you can give me some advice, I'd be appreciative. Okay. Here it goes. Like I said, the Cash App there. Like I said, I don't care. You donate $1 or $1 billion. You want the channel to keep going. It's okay to donate some money. But anyway, I had an old video that I took down because, like I said, YouTube was being observed, just flagging down ancient videos out of the blue. Right now, I know I'm going to have to renew mine. I think I got like 2 more years. I got 2025 to renew mine. And the renewal is $162, if I'm not mistaken. Prior to that, it was like $135, if I'm not mistaken. I know everything went up, so hold on a second. Hey, what up, man? Of tomorrow. I gotta figure out how much it actually costs because you're a first timer. But I'll tell you right now, have your birth certificate ready and your social security card. Social security card. Fill out the form. Don't fill out the blue or white form. Fill out the brown and tan form. That's the first time form. If it says it's going to take 13 weeks, well, once you set up the interview, you got to set up the interview and take the form, fill it out, go to your nearest Rite Aid or CVS pharmacy and have your picture taken for your passport right then and there. Don't wait. I don't know what's up with people like to wait. Stop waiting. But be prepared to shell out some cheese. Because depending on the state and the county and the post office that you locally live by, they're going to charge you a lot of money. Like I said, I got mine renewed back in 2015. So it's going to be about 10 years and 2 more years. So, and I know the COVID shit slow everything down, and they had a list of what areas you go that's vaccinated, not vaccinated, all that. Anyway, best thing to do, like I said, get the form, schedule a interview, show up on that time. So they tell you, hey, the interview is at 10 a.m. Show up at 9:30. Just saying, show up at 9:30. Because where I at, my local post office, I tell you who's getting their passports left and right. Well, technically, again, we knew. I gotta correct myself. Again, we knew left and right. It's these immigrants. I'm just keeping it real with you. I'm in New York, so. But hopefully that'd be enough. But take a look at your local area, see how much it costs. Worst thing, and be prepared to. I'd say save $400. Put $400 aside. You're not gonna spend that on your first time passport. So hold on a second. I'll do one better. Because like I said, it's been 10 years since I renewed mine. Each state is different, so. Okay. The fee for a adult passport book is now $130. After tax would be like, say, $135. That's in New York State. I know that. So I don't know what state you're from. So just Google that real quick, and that will help. All right. So back to the regular scheduled program, and I'm gonna do another screenshot. We're gonna take a look at this one. This one is pretty interesting. Okay. Biden toughens border, offers legal path for $30,000 a month. Now, gotta remember my old previous videos before, like I said, YouTube was being a scumbag. I like to flag down old videos, even ones that's educational for some strange reason. These are all the immigrants. These are probably, from the looks of it, look like Africans and Nigerians. Hispanics, mainly Central America.
Cold, drying out your skin? Try Lubriderm Advanced.
I hate that but anyway, you get the point. I hate when they just come up with these fucking ad sounds. Anyway, President Joe Biden said this past Thursday that the U.S. would immediately begin turning away Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans who cross the border from Mexico illegally. That's part of the North American Trade Agreement. I keep telling people. His boldest move yet to confront the arrivals of migrants that have spiraled since he took office 2 years ago. The new rules expand on the existing efforts to stop Venezuelans attempting to enter the United States, which began in October of last year and led to a dramatic drop in Venezuelans coming to the southern border. And together, they represent a major change to immigration rules that will stand even if the Supreme Court ends a Trump-era public health law that allows U.S. authorities to turn away asylum seekers. Hold on. Do not just show up at the border, Biden said, as they announced the changes, even as he acknowledged the hardships that led many families to make the dangerous journey to the north. Stay where you are and apply legally from there, he advised. You know what? I agree. Before I go further, you want to know why you got people coming from the border from Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Africa, China, North Korea? A lot of people don't tell you this. And like South Korea, yes. And Kenyans, yes. People from Poland. Get the fuck out of here with this damn ass shit. And Venezuela at the time. Well, you gotta remember, going back 54 years ago, when your favorite crook and Trixie Dixie from the Midwest, Richard Nixon, ever since the Nixon administration, every single Republican administration, you've been hearing Republican presidents, former House representatives, and senators under the Republican administration, presidential administration, keep saying that our borders are weak, our borders are open, our borders are this, our borders that. By you publicly say that on international TV airwaves and radio, you telling the fucking world that, hey, our borders are open, you are welcome to come in. Don't put the blame on the Democrats. You never heard a single Democrat ever. You never heard it from Carter, even though he served one term. You never heard it from Clinton, even though he served 2 terms. And you never ever heard it from Obama, even though he served 2 terms. And not even Biden. More likely he's going to serve 1 term, if he's lucky to do 2, if he lives long enough, and if dementia don't kick in. But then again, we had 2 terms of a senile dementia, Alzheimer's president known as Ronald Reagan. And he was a fucked up Republican. That being said, every Republican presidential elected official been saying this jargon every time there's a Republican presidential elected president in office. Been like that since 1968. Now, even during George W. Bush, baby Bush, not W. H. Bush Sr. No. Baby Bush said that. Baby Bush said that. So is his dad, I should say. But here's the difference between, he's the only Republican president at that time that hit a record of deporting. A lot of people don't know this. Deporting a mass of what? 85 million people out of this country. A lot of people don't tell you. We deported tens of millions of people out of this country from 2000 to 2008 under George W. Bush, or Baby Bush. Unbeknownst to everybody else, that was a record. Okay? You just deported a nation. Now imagine your Democratic president picked off where you left off and topped that by 15 more million. An additional 100 million people got deported. And 2 terms, a total of 100 million illegal. There were so many people coming here, it wasn't even funny. People were coming here illegally on plane, boat, underground, coming from the border. That was true, because you got your dumbass Republican candidates keep saying our borders are open, People coming in. You're promoting it. But you don't come up with alternative solutions. You had 2 terms of George W. Bush. Never came a solution to solve the immigration crisis. Granted, you deported a lot of fucking people. You're the first one to book the fucking record. Then your Democrat counterpart surpassed that by deporting 100 million. And yes, under his vice presidency, Democrat administration, they did detain children and put them in cages. So did Baby Bush. Gotta love it, right? Anyway. One thing the Democrat president's been saying for a long time, not just him, not just Obama, but Clinton, and I say Carter, and I think LBJ. Don't quote me on that. Stay where you at and apply legally. The forms are readily available in their home countries to apply to immigrate here legally as full citizens, or at least start off as either temporary dual citizenship, known as a legal resident, but you work on the path to become full citizen, a naturalized citizen, once you take your citizenship test. And I tell you right now, all the legal fees and lawyer fees you have to pay, in today's money, that's about $45,000. Now, to become a dual citizen, actually, it's too expensive. But when you fill out the application to become a naturalized citizen, they put you in a temporary dual citizenship, I think, for free. A lot of people don't know that you be on the waiting list for sometimes 10, 20, 30 years. I give a case in point. One of the most powerful men in Hollywood named Anthony Hopkins. You know, the guy that played Hannibal Lecter in the original Silence of the Lambs? The guy that played all those good-ass classic movies back in the day? The guy that played as Odin in the Thor movies? Did you know it took him 32 fucking years to become a full nationalized U.S. citizen? They made that motherfucker that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, close to $1 billion. They made that motherfucker wait. Yes, they made him, Anthony Hopkins, wait for 32 years. Do you know when he became a citizen? Do anybody know? I think it was 2020, either 2019 or 2020. Goddamn. He was a senior citizen when he finally became a full-fledged U.S. citizen. Do you know how long it took Arnold Schwarzenegger to become a citizen in the United States? It took him 20 years. 20 years. They made that motherfucker wait. They put him on a fucking waiting list. The reason why they did that back in the day, because they want you to integrate with the culture. Every country does this. It's not just the United States. But I think the United States has the longest wait time. They figure they give you enough time to learn the language, learn the history, learn the culture. When you get sworn in, you should not be having no fucking accent at that point. You should be having an Americanized accent in the United States, U.S. accent. But yeah, I know I segue. So, like Biden said, stay where you are and apply legally from there, he advised, which is much more safer by doing that. Biden made an announcement just days before the planned visit to El Paso, Texas, on Sunday for his first trip to the southern border as president. From there, he will travel up to Mexico City to meet with the North American leaders on Monday and Tuesday. Homeland Security officials said that they would begin denying asylum seekers, basically, to those who circumvent legal pathways and do not first ask for asylum in the country they travel through en route to the United States. Instead, the U.S. will accept only 30,000 people per month. So they're going to screen 30,000 people. That doesn't mean all 30,000 people will become path to U.S. Nationalization. Out of 30,000, it could be 10 or 15,000 that will fit the bill, and the rest would get discarded and get deported back. Trust me. I know somebody that work in that field, and it's not as easy as you think. Anyway, so basically, it will accept 30,000 people per month from the 4 nations for 2 years and offer the ability to work legally as long as they come here legally. Have eligible sponsorship and pass vetting and background checks. That means you cannot have a criminal past in your home country and want to come here. That shit ain't happening no more. Those days are done. Border crossings by migrants from those 4 nations or 4 countries have risen most sharply, with no easy way to quickly return them to their home countries. Yeah, because you fucking Republicans keep saying our borders are open and everybody's coming in. You think motherfuckers ain't tuning in every time we talk on TV and complain about our goddamn borders? Give me a fucking break. Anyway, because I'm going to come up with my solution with these people where to strategically put them once they become nationalized. Not all they're going to become nationalized. I guarantee you that that's going to get cut to half, if not 20%. Guaranteed. This new process is orderly, Biden said. It's safe and humane, and it works. That's true. The move, while not unsuspected, drew swift criticisms from asylum and immigration advocates who have had a rocky relationship with the president. The president correctly recognized today that seeking asylum is a legal right and spoke sympathy about the people fleeing persecution. Said that Jonathan Blazer, the American Civil Liberties Union Director of Border Strategies, but the plan he announced further ties his administration to the poisonous anti-immigration policies of Trump era instead of restoring fair access to asylum protections. So let's play the video.
Hey everybody, sorry to keep you waiting. There's a lot going on.
Let's crank this up to HD.
Over the past several years, thousands of people have been fleeing from Central and South America and the Caribbean countries ruled by oppressive dictators, including Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and escaping gang violence, which has the same impact, in Haiti. Currently, these 4 countries account for most of the people traveling into Mexico to start a new life by getting to the American border and trying to cross. But instead of safe and orderly process at the border, we have a patchwork system that simply doesn't work as it should. Today, my administration is taking several steps to stiffen enforcement for those who try to come without a legal right to stay, and to put in place a faster process, I emphasize a faster process, to decide a claim of asylum. Someone says, I'm coming because I'm escaping oppression. Well, there's got to be a way to determine that much quicker. If you're trying to leave Cuba, Nicaragua, or Haiti, have agreed to begin a journey to America, do not just show up at the border. Stay where you are and apply legally from there. Starting today, if you don't apply through the legal process, you will not be eligible for this new parole program. Let me reiterate. You need a lawful sponsor in the United States of America, number one, and you need to undergo a rigorous background check, number two. If your application is approved and you show up at a U.S. airport or when and where directed, you have access. But if your application is denied or you attempt to cross into the United States unlawfully, you will not be allowed to enter. This new process is orderly, it's safe, and it's humane, and it works. Since we created the new program, the number of Venezuelans trying to enter America without going through a legal process has dropped dramatically from about 1,100 per day to less than 250 per day on average.
There you go. So the program do work, and people still complaining like, no, the program do work, folks. You just got to stop over exaggerating. All right. So even with the health law restrictions in place, the president has seen the number of migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border rise dramatically during his first 2 years in office. There were more than about 2.38 million people stops during the fiscal year that ended on September 30th of this past year. Well, past last year, my bad. The first time that number topped it 2 million. The administration has struggled to clamp down on crossings, reluctant to take hardline measures that would resemble those of the Trump administration. That's resulted in a relentless criticism from the Republicans, who say that the Democrat president is ineffective on the border security. Really? And the newly minted Republican House majority has promised congressional investigation on the matter. No, that shit ain't gonna fucking work. Trust me. The new policy will result in 360,000 people from the 4 nations lawfully entering the United States in a year. A huge number, but far more people from those countries have been attempted to cross into the United States on foot, by boat, or swimming. Migrants to those 4 countries were stopped like about 82,286 times in November alone. God damn. Valabuna, I'm going to butcher the first name, so a Venezuelan who was living in Tijuana, Mexico, after crossing the border illegally, said Thursday's announcement came as no surprise, but a blow nevertheless. This was coming. It's getting more difficult all the time, he said by the next text message. Some Venezuelans waiting on Mexico's border with the U.S. have been talking among themselves if Canada is an option. No, it's not. Anyway, Valabena said that he had been waiting for the outcome of the pandemic related asylum ban before trying to enter the United States again, and is seeking asylum in Mexico, which offers a much better future than Venezuela. True. But Mexico is still a narco state. But anyway, if it becomes more difficult to reach the United States, the best path is to get papers in Mexico, said the Venezuelan who currently works in Tijuana factory. Mexico has agreed to accept up to a minimum 30,000 migrants each month from the 4 countries who attempt to walk or swim across the U.S. border. The U.S. and Mexico border, sorry. And are turned back. Wow, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Springfield Armory, 1911 looked pretty good. Anyway, are turned back. Okay, normally these migrants would be returning to their home countries of origin, but the U.S. cannot easily send back people from those 4 countries for a variety of reasons that included relations with the government there. That's right. A lot of people don't understand that. Anyone coming to the U.S. is allowed to claim asylum regardless of how they cross the border. And the migrants seeking a better life in the United States often pay smugglers the equivalent of thousands of dollars, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars, to deliver them across the dangerous Darien Gap. But the requirements for granting asylum are narrowing, and only about 30% of applicants are granted. Only 30%. So, was 30% out of 100,000, 30,000. You get the basic formula of math here. That has created the system in which migrants try to cross between ports of entry and are allowed into the United States to wait out their cases. And these cases could take months, in some cases a couple of years at a time, folks. But there is a 2 million case immigration court backlog. So cases often are not heard for years. That's right. And then you see these people randomly get deported because they eventually heard your case and you did not show up for court. And then you wonder why you're getting deported. That's why. So you could be here for like 20 years and your case finally appeared and you're supposed to show up for court. I know, then again, they sent letters in both English and Spanish. In some cases, other languages like Italian, Korean, Chinese, and whatever. So it's not like you don't get mail at the, in your mailbox to state when your next court hearing is. They ignore that shit half of the time. Anyway, the only lasting way to change the system is through Congress. But a bipartisan congressional effort on the new immigration laws failed shortly before the Republicans took the House majority. That's right. And guess who fucked it up? Republicans. The actions we're announcing will make things better, but will not fix the border problem completely, Biden said. And pressing lawmakers to act. So in other words, it gives the lawmakers to do their due diligence to act. Under the then President Donald Trump, the U.S. required asylum seekers to wait across the border in Mexico. But the laws in the immigration system created long delays in Mexico, leading to ferret and dangerous camps over the border where migrants were forced to wait. That system was ended under Biden, and the migrants who are returning to Mexico under the new rules will not be eligible for asylum. So they have to seek asylum in Mexico. And then that's a backlog over that, because Mexico have an immigration policy that lasts for over 100 years. I keep telling people. Biden will also triple the number of refugee acceptance to the United States from Western Hampshire to 20,000 from Latin America and Caribbean combined, so 10,000 apiece over the next 2 years. That's it, the next 2 years. So year one, that's 20,000 for both Latin America and the Caribbean. And year two, that's another additional 20,000 for the Latin America and Caribbean. That's a total 40,000. Compared to the U.S. population of 532 million Yankee-ass Americans, myself included, that's a fart in the wind. Refugees and asylum seekers have to meet the same criteria to be allowed into this nation. But they arrive through different means. Border officials are also creating an online appointment portal to help reduce the wait times at the U.S. ports of entry for those coming legally. It will allow people to set up an appointment to come and ask to be allowed into the country. Well, let me have a sip of water. At the U.S. and Mexico border, migrants have been denied a chance to seek asylum. That's about a total of 2.5 billion times since March of 2020 under the Title 42 restrictions introduced as an emergency health measure by Trump to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Well, that's the executive order. So that should have always been done away with. He's no longer in office. But there always has been criticism that the restrictions were used as a pretext by the Republicans to seal off the border. And the Republicans couldn't seal off the border. Biden moved to end the Title 14 restrictions and Republicans sued to keep them. The U.S. Supreme Court has kept the rules in place for now, it's only temporarily because it's executive order. White House officials say that they still believe that the restrictions should end, but they maintain they can continue to turn away migrants under the immigration law. No, you can't, because you got the fucking Texas governor crying and complaining. You got your Florida governor crying and complaining, dumping people over the fucking country, which you're not supposed to do, stupid. Supposed to take them in and get processed, but I digress. The four nationalities that Biden addressed this Thursday now make up the majority of those crossing the border illegally. Cubans who are leaving the island nation in their largest numbers in 6 decades were stopped at 34,675 times. That's a total of 34,675 people at the U.S. border. With Mexico in November up to 21% from October. Nicaraguans are the large reason why El Paso has become the busiest courier for illegals crossings and was stopped at additional hit. Look at the numbers. 34,209 times. That means they stopped a total of 34,209 people in November. That's up at 65% from October, the month before. But Venezuelans were seen far less at the border after Mexico agreed on October 12 of 2022, that just passed, to begin accepting those expelled from the United States. They were stopped 7,931 times, down at 64% from October of that year. So, if my math serves me right, because we're going to do some quick math here. Okay? I know. And a total of 76,815 people we turned down. That's right, folks. We turned down more people than we accept. That's been the history of the United States. A lot of people don't know. Okay, not complete history of the United States, but going back the Iranian Immigration Act that passed, 76 by Jimmy Carter? Yeah. Venezuelans have said the changes have been difficult, particularly with finding a sponsor who has the financial resources to demonstrate their ability to support them, which is true because the vast majority of people in the United States are no longer blue collar or known as working class, middle class. A vast majority of people in the United States, at 98%, that's earning between $32,000 a year. We talk about exempt employees. There's a difference between exempt employee and a wage employee, by the way. Exempt employees or employees that's on salary, people that's earning $32,000 all the way up to $92,000 a year, are considered the working poor. It hasn't changed in the last 16 fucking years, going on 17. That's right. There's no more blue collar people no more. Those days are gone. They've been gone, believe it or not. They were gone slowly during the Nixon administration. But anyway. So that's why it's hard to get sponsorship, because you got too many people working 2, 3, or 4 fucking jobs to stay afloat. Anyway. Even if they find a sponsor, sometimes they delay their arrival because they don't have the economic resources to pay for the flight to the United States. For some, the Venezuelan passport that they needed has expired and they cannot afford to pay for a renewal. That's right. So, close out this. Let me take a look at the chat. Okay. Here are the jackasseries. Here we go. Watch this. Block. Block. And nobody is not talking about traveling and passporting over here. I'm doing the current events. If I want, I could do that in my channel. That's no problem. I don't have time to debate. I'm on the live stream, so I have to block the exact same horse shit jackasses. Oh my God. And I know who's doing that. He's a loser. Because I know it's not a female. I know he's a loser. Anyway, let's continue. So, let's get on with it. All right. Before I go, let me go use the bathroom real quick. All right, I'm back. Okay. Here are the states with the longest life expectancy. Let's go, folks. Let's go. Okay. A new NICE RX study ranked all 50 states based on life expectancy. Hawaii came in at number 1 with the longest life expectancy at 80.7 years. So that's 80 years and 7 months. Hawaii was the only state where the average life expectancy hit 80. I don't know how the fuck why. Besides the nice temperature, the cost of living there is atrocious. You can't even be a homeowner there. You pay $170,000 a year just to rent a house or apartment. They have a housing crisis and a housing shortage in the state of Hawaii. Anyway, people in Hawaii, Washington, and Minnesota have the longest life expectancy in the nation, according to the new study. A nice RX study released this Thursday found that Hawaii has the longest life expectancy of all 50 states at 80 years and 7 months old in 2020. That's in 2020. That number could change. That number is about 4 years higher than the national average, which dropped for the second year in a row in 2021 to 76.4 years, according to the data from the Centers of Disease and Control, CDC. The CDC data shows that the difference between life expectancy among men and women are also widening. Men in the United States have an average life expectancy at 73.5 years, while women can expect to live at 79.3 years. The CDC attributes the decline in the life expectancy to the death caused by COVID-19, as well as deaths due to unintentional injuries, chronic liver diseases in the United States, and cirrhosis, and suicide and homicide, which is true. While Hawaiians can expect to live longest on average, you know why? Because that's a low crime rate state. The state's life expectancy has decreased in the past few years in Hawaii, believe it or not. In 2019, the average life expectancy in Aloha State was at 82.3 years, the study notes. Similar to the national average, and the gap between how long men and women can expect to live is different in Hawaii residents as well. Men in Hawaii, an average life expectancy is at 77.6 years, 77.5. Okay, while women have an average life expectancy at 83.8 years, according to the National Vital Statistics report released last year. So, people in Washington State and Minnesota have almost identical average life expectancies at 79.2 years and 79.1 years, respectively. So the narrow margin varies, same shit. California, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire and Oregon all have an average life expectancy of 79 years in 2020, according to the NICE REX. Here are the 10 states with the longest life expectancy. And no, it's not Florida, folks. No, it's not Texas. It's Hawaii, number 1, at 80.7 years. Washington State at 79.2, Minnesota at 79.1, California 79 flat, Massachusetts tied 79 flat, New Hampshire tied at 79 flat. But look at the population of New Hampshire; it's unpopulated. You don't see a huge youthful population. You see a lot of middle-aged people and elderly in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is like the northern version of Florida. Oregon, 78.8, tied with Vermont, 78.8. Yeah. And then you got Utah at 76.6, and Connecticut 78.6, 78.5 years, and Connecticut narrowly margin I'm sorry, a margin of error, basically 78.4. All right. Hey, Debbie George. Yes, thank you. And Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, fellas. All right. Let's get on with the chat. Because I got after this, I got 3 more articles to go, and then I'm going to make me something to eat. Because it's 2:34 a.m. time in the East Coast. So, right now, we're going to play a video. I'm not even going to waste my time reading the damn article. And let's go play a video, let the video do the talking. And then I'll do my commentary after the video.
Librarians in Brooklyn being honored for their work helping people get access to books that may be prohibited in certain parts of the country.
They started this new program. It's called Books Unbanned. Fox 5's Richard Giacobas shows us how it works.
A librarian wears many hats. They suggest book titles, encourage young readers to challenge themselves. They even help with technology. But one thing librarian Jackson Gomes didn't sign up for when he took a job as a youth librarian at the Brooklyn Public Library was a war on books.
When I work with teens, it worries me so much to see that teens don't have access to something as basic as intellectual freedom, to books.
At a time when parents, activists, and conservative lawmakers across the country were aggressively banning book titles they found offensive, Jackson and his colleagues decided to take action.
I am an immigrant. I came to the United States 20-something years ago, and this is my first library. This is the first library I stepped foot in. And I remember as a kid, my mother was like, hey, this is a room for kids. Explore, read whatever you like, seek whatever you like.
These are 3 of the 5 librarians who have started their own book club, appropriately titled Books Unbanned. Library Journal has named them Librarians of the Year, just 5 days into 2023.
It wasn't really about the books after a while. It started to become a campaign against particular people in our communities.
So what Books Unbanned does is gives teenagers the chance to check out books that are banned, like these, in libraries and classrooms all across the U.S. What the librarians do is give out electronic library cards so that these teenagers can access the titles online in a vast library. So far, since the program launched last spring, more than 6,000 teenagers have inquired about these titles.
They all deserve access to it, and we are happy to be able to provide it for them with no barriers or gatekeeping.
There is a palpable sense of pride at this Brooklyn library. They're just doing their job by adding a little inclusivity along the way. In the Prospect Heights section of Brooklyn, Richard Giacobas, Fox 5 News.
There you go. There you go. Now, I'm not a fan banning books. Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I get what you're saying, Debbie George, and I'm not trying to get in trouble by YouTube by highlighting your question up. And I technically agree. But we're talking about adolescent kids here. We're not even talking about kids that are in the pedo age between the ages of, I'm talking in like preschool all the way through 9, if you're lucky. That's if they don't start puberty early. I mean, when it comes to, say, adolescents, I think they have the right to know because, they're already being prepped up for adulthood, so you got to get them up to speed. Don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting an 8-year-old to know anything about that when it comes to that type of subject. And they should just worry about regular 8-year-old type of stuff. And usually that type of situations usually tend to be more adult orientated. Because very rare you see kids into that situation. But like books like history and I think those books for all ages in the story. No, I think they mainly refer to adolescent kids. That's what they basically refer to, teenage kids. But anyway, I'll try to gather my thoughts here real quick. All right. When you do, yeah, that's mainly for, yeah, but that's for an adolescent kid. A 5-year-old is not going to read that. You understand what I'm saying? A 5-year-old is not going to read that. You more likely see a 12-year-old kid, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid reading that, but not a 5-year-old. I'm not expecting a 5-year-old to know what the hell that means. They're not in that mental mature state at that point in time. They should be learning how to color, learning how to read, and watch cartoons and play outside. But my point is, they ban the books when it comes to learning your history or the civil rights movement. They banned the books about history about slavery. That coming from your Republican Party. No, they're not gonna let Debbie George. One thing I learned about the system, they're not gonna let all ages check. They're gonna keep it into an adolescent centric. That's it. No younger than maybe 11 or 12 years old, and that's it. I guarantee you that. I know how strict New York State is. You know, Brooklyn was my original hometown city before I presently live where I'm living at now for many decades. But let's go to, I'm just going to play the article here. And then I'm going to give my commentary. So the number did drop. I wonder why. So let me go up here. And let's play the article. All right. Title is basically 159,000. I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. 159,244,000 record number of U.S. Americans employed in the month of December that just passed a month ago. All right. Now we went from 167 million to 159,244,000. Now we're still short of 100 million. And I hope you know that's a private workforce. Now we're still short of 100 million people. That's not in the private sector. You know, people don't realize that the overwhelming majority of your private sector is service sector, like retail, like hospitality industry. That's including airlines, hotels, and restaurants. We don't do a lot of manufacturing here. We got sweatshops, but they all tend to be snatched up by immigrants. They recruit immigrants before they recruit you. But anyway, let's continue. Let's go play this audio.
CNSnews.com. Reversing recent declines, the percentage of the population that is either working or actively looking for work increased slightly to 62.3% in December, up 1/10 of a point from November, and 4 basis points higher than the 61.9% in December 2021. In its final report for 2022, the Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics counted a record 159,244,000 employed Americans in December, an increase of 717,000 from last month's 158,527,000 revised number, and the number of Americans counted as not in the labor force dropped below the 100 million level to 99,879,000. People who are not in the labor force have no job and are not looking for one. This group includes retirees, students, caregivers, and others who have dropped out of the labor force at a time when jobs go begging. Despite higher interest rates, the economy added a strong 230,000 jobs in December, above expectations of 200,000. Notable job gains occurred in leisure and hospitality, health care, construction, and social assistance. Along with the record number of employed Americans, the number of unemployed, no job but actively looking, dropped by 278,000 to 5,722,000 last month, producing an unemployment rate of 3.5%, 1/10 of a point lower than it was in November. The unemployment rate has remained in the 3.5 to 3.7% range since March. In December, the civilian non-institutional population in the United States was 264,844,000. That included all people 16 and older who did not live in an institution, such as a prison, nursing home or long-term care facility. Of that civilian non-institutional population, 164,966,000 were participating in the labor force, meaning they were either employed or unemployed, they either had a job or were actively looking for one during the last month. This resulted in a labor force participation rate of 62.3% in December, up from 62.2% revised in November, 62.2% in October, and the same as it was in September, 62.3%. The participation rate was 61.4% when Joe Biden took office as the pandemic raged. Today's number, 62.3%, is still more than a point below the Trump-era high of 63.4% recorded in February 2020, just before COVID prompted shutdowns. Among the major worker groups, the unemployment rate for whites fell to 3.0% in December. The jobless rates for adult men 3.1%, adult women 3.2%, teenagers 10.4%, blacks 5.7%, Asians 2.4%, and Hispanics 4.1% showed little or no change over the month. In December, average hourly earnings for all employees on private non-farm payrolls rose by 9 cents, or 0.3%, to $32.82. In November, average hourly earnings for all employees on private non-farm payrolls rose by 18 cents, or 0.6%, so wage growth has now slowed. The change in total non-farm payroll employment for October was revised down by 21,000, from plus 284,000 to plus 263,000, and the change for November was revised down by 7,000, from plus 263,000 to plus 256,000. With these revisions, employment gains in October and November combined were 28,000 lower than previously reported. Excess retirements. In a speech on November 30, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell noted that demand for workers far exceeds the supply of available workers, which has pushed up wages and inflation. Looking back, we can see that a significant and persistent labor supply shortfall opened up during the pandemic, a shortfall that appears unlikely to fully close anytime soon. Powell said labor force participation dropped sharply at the onset of the pandemic because of many factors, including sickness, caregiving, and fear of infection. Many forecasters expected that participation would move back up fairly quickly as the pandemic faded. And for workers in their prime working years, it mostly has. Overall participation, however, remains well below pre-pandemic trends. Powell pointed to recent research by Fed economists showing that labor force participation is being constrained by what he called excess retirements, or retirements in excess of what would have been expected from population aging alone. These excess retirements might now account for more than 2 million of the 31.5 million shortfall in the labor force. Powell said excess retirements can be explained by health issues, the cost of finding new employment, particularly for older workers, and a rising stock market and home prices in the first 2 years of the pandemic, which contributed to an increase in wealth that likely facilitated early retirement for some people. Powell said older workers are still retiring at higher rates, and retirees aren't returning to the labor force in large enough numbers to reduce the number of excess retirees. He said a second factor contributing to the labor supply shortfall is slower growth in the working age population. The Fed's goal is to restore balance to labor supply and labor demand. Its recent interest rate increases are an attempt to slow job creation.
All right. Now, I'm going to add, which they did not talk or mention, which I'm going to mention here. Debbie, you know why they do that? They've been doing that for decades. Me and you both, I'm obviously older than me, so you know better. Me and you both know damn well that 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds are not even old enough to work no more than 2 to 3 times a week for a minimum of 3 hours. They only could do a 3-hour shift for 2 to 3 times a week during the school year. Okay? They don't even count as a stat. They don't count as a stat. I don't know what they need to give up on that statistic. I agree. They need to give that shit up. Why are you counting children? And my favorite part is they use that age group, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds, right, as a stat to bump up the high unemployment rate among us black folk. Last time I checked, black people working 2 or 3 jobs. See, what they don't talk about on that article I just showed you guys is that you got more people working 2 to 3 jobs. And you got more people underemployed. You still got people that are still underemployed under the Trump administration. Permanently underemployed. You know what permanent underemployed means? You are permanently part-timer. You will never see a full-time position or get full-time hours ever. That's not a way to live. I should know. It's stupid. I don't get that, oh, we're going to add 16, 17 years of statistics. For what? They don't even make a dent. Half the workforce are seniors. They're already retired. You got a bunch of 50 to fucking 58-year-olds. Actually, you got a bunch of 50 to, like, say, 63-year-olds in the workforce. They're going to retire. Especially if they sold their house, they definitely going to retire a lot sooner. And then you got people working from home. They're not counting that because you got nearly 100 million motherfuckers that's working from home that used to work in the private workforce in those freaking office buildings. And you got mayors and governors in states like mine saying that, yeah, we're going to want to make you guys come back to work. No, they're not going back to work. They're already working. They're working from home. They're actually earning more of a better living than they were going back to the damn office. Motherfuckers are stupid. Let's continue. I got like one more after this. All right. Here we go. This is part 2 of this. Unbelievably good. The CNBC anchor gushes about historically low unemployment and new jobs report. Yay, but a lot of people don't tell you that those new jobs, that 211,000 newly jobs are for underemployees. That's right, folks. Just like I said before. Hold on. Hold on. All right. Get this. Okay. And close. And
Okay, great. It's time for the December jobs report. And Rick, you can give it to us and then pretend that I ask you to weigh in as well after the number. Good, I see it. Okay,
Not
good.
a problem, Joe. Of course, we're waiting. Here we go. The jobs creation for the month of December, 223,000. We continue to see these numbers get closer and closer to 200, but historically, these are still good numbers. And if we look at manufacturing payrolls increased about 8,000, darn close to expectations. 3.5% on the unemployment rate, 3.5%. That equals the best levels we've seen post-COVID, historically unbelievably good. And of course, if you're looking at the Fed, maybe it's unbelievably bad in that twisted relationship we now have due to the Fed raising rates, trying to slow down the economy. If we look at average hourly earnings, up 0.3%, half of last month's up 0.6, which actually now becomes only up 0.4. And if we look at year over year, up 4.6, that's a new low watermark going all the way back to August of 21 when it was 4.3. And if we look at the average work week, 34.3, which usurps 34.4 in the rearview mirror. That was the lowest level since April of 2020. So these are very important numbers to pay attention to as we continue to see deterioration on the work week. Labor force participation. Okay, I'm going to cheer this one, folks. 62.3. And so far in the rearview mirror, 62.1 unrevised. 62.3 is the best number since the high water mark, which was August at 62.4. And we had several of those, I believe. I think we also had one in March of 22 at 62.4. So that is very good news. And if we look at the underemployment rate, okay, so U3, as I pointed out, is 3.5%, and U6 is 6.5%. That's also a new low with respect to the U6. It had been at 6.7. And just to let everybody know, the employment rate prior to the COVID was at 3.1%? I'm sorry, it was 3.5%. So we're exactly equal now. Wages were 3.1. And even though this wage number is definitely a bit of a disappointment, especially on the year over year number at 4.6, it's still light years above where we were pre-COVID. We need to keep that in context. And very quickly, everybody's talking about tech and all the layoffs. The Wall Street Journal had some interesting numbers today. Tech represents 2%. Labor force, roughly, let's talk about people working 154 million. That comes out to a little over 3 million in tech. In leisure, hospitality, restaurants, about 15.5 million. Government workers, about 21.5 million, just to put a face on it.
Bullshit. Government workers got their own tally. They're not even in that so-called 154 plus million. That's all the private workforce, you stupid motherfucker. I hate when they do this. Anyway.
Joe and the...
I hate when they do this. Full of fucking shit. Anyway. Than the government sector. Do you want to know why? Do you know how hard it is to get a public sector job? Especially a public sector job that's a unionized? Like a janitor. They still charge $25 an hour. You just have to get through the 5-year seniority cycle. A construction worker, you know, you could start anywhere from, you know, $75 an hour to say $102 an hour, and go up from there. Depends on the skill set and what type of trade, like welding, you know, mason work. You know, there's an endless list when it comes to construction. Will the job market ever recover from 2020 lockdown policies? No, because you got people doing work from home. Like I just said, what happened to the Great Resignation? People are still resigning. People just handing their resignation, said, "Fuck it, I quit my job. I want to resign. Give me my small little token package from resigning, and let me go on my merry long way." Now, but people don't understand that the Great Resignation been going on for the past 23 fucking years, since 1999. This has been a 23-year cycle. Okay, people forgot that under George W. Bush, we had like, I think was it we had like 347 million private workforce. Okay, after his 2 terms, we went from by the end of his second term, it dropped to 347. Like the last 2 years of his second term, it went from 347 to 267. Obama kept it 267 throughout his 2 terms. Despite the defaulted debt that happened under the House of Republicans in 2011, and even though it took 2 years to recover in 2013, they tried to do it again. He still kept it at 267 million people at the private workforce. That being said, both those administrations have one thing in common. I know, was it 147 out of 347 million workforce at that time under the 2 terms of George W. Bush, that 147 million people were underemployed, or known as permanent part-timers. I remember the conversation happened when he won his second term in 2005. Now, under Obama administration, out of was it 267 million workforce, you had 100 million people in the private sector that were underemployed. So that means you got permanent part-timers that's probably working 2 jobs that are part-time, or have working 2 jobs that one are permanent part-time, one is permanent full-time. Fast forward to the present day, it's still like that. Now, when you look at the public workforce, that's a different number. We're talking about on average 70 million people working in the public work sector, like teachers, police officers, non-volunteer firefighters, EMT and ambulance personnel, county, like I said, county police officers, state police officers, federal law enforcement, your politicians, folks. Now, majority of the people I just named are hourly workers, I think, except for politicians. But I'm going to leave the politicians out of it. And that's just to name a few in the union. You got your construction workers. You got your unionized truck drivers. You got your public transit that's unionized. Got your public educators that's unionized. Yes. Either CPS workers and other divisions of Child Protective Services that are state and county and federal. They're hourly workers, but they're in the public sector. That's a separate number. That's a claim, like I said, that's a separate number. I think it's on average 70 million. But the job openings are so like narrow because the people work there a lot longer. That's the difference. And that's what people don't fucking seem to get. So no, the job market would never recover. The old methods are dead. It should have died in 2008. And people prolonged that. And I said it back in 2012 that the old economy died in 2007. Actually, originally died in 1999 when the dot-com bubble popped. And it should have stayed dead. And everybody tried to bring back that old model. It's dead. So I'm going to do the last one, and then I'm going to eat, chill for a bit, and then sleep. All right. All right. Yep, I can do this. All right. Okay. Trump accused in lawsuit of causing the wrongful death of an officer, Brian Sicknick, in the U.S. Capitol attack on January 6, 2 years ago. Damn shame. So this is the February 3rd of 2021 photo. A U.S. Capitol police officer holds a program during the ceremony memorializing Brian Sicknick in Washington. Sicknick's estate filed a lawsuit. So, the estate of Brian Sicknick, a Capitol police officer who died after responding to the January 6th insurrection of 2021 attack in the U.S. Capitol, is suing two rioters involved in the attack and the former President Donald Trump for his alleged role in engaging in on it. Engaging it on. This the civil lawsuit filed on Thursday. This Thursday that passed in Washington, D.C. federal court adds to the 2024 presidential candidate's troubles linked to his efforts to impede the peaceful transfer of power after his 2020 electoral laws. Trump is already a defendant in several other civil January 6 related lawsuits, where he is arguing his presidency makes him immune from liability. Well, you're not president no more, you're a former president. So you're a private citizen, dummy. Anyway, the lawsuits from Sicknick's estate was filed the day before the Capitol attack's 2-year anniversary. As the officer Sicknick and hundreds of others, I forget, total was it 156? And out of that, I think 5 or 6 of them got killed. And out of that total, 156 got injured, brutally injured, I may add, including other police officers, elected officials, and rank and file workers at the Capitol were put in the moral danger. And as the seat of the American democracy was desecrated by an insurgent mob, defendant Trump watched the event unfold on live television from the safety of the White House. Lawyers from Sicknick's estate and his partner, Sandra Graza, wrote in a complaint. The horrific events of January 6th of 2021, including the officer Sicknick's tragic wrongful death, were a direct and foreseeable consequence of the defendant's unlawful actions. Sicknick's estate also alleges the conspiracy, negligence, and assault. The lawsuit notes that Trump instructed his supporters in Washington on January 6 to fight like hell and show strength in his speech before the Capitol riot began. Julian Cantor and George Tanos, the two other Capitol rioters named in the suit, plead guilty last summer to crimes of that's the summer 2021 of that year. So, the crimes related to the breach. They are set to be sentenced later this month. This year, 2023. During the riot, Kelter took bear spray from Tino's backpack and spraying Sicknick and other officers in their faces and forcing them to recoil as rioters pushed forward, as insurrectionists, not rioters, pushed forward towards the Capitol steps. Sicknick suffered multitude of strokes and died of natural causes the day after the Capitol breach, according to 2021 report by DC's chief medical examiner. The examiner, Francisco Diaz, told the Washington Post that all that transpired on January 6th played a major role for his condition to worsen. So, Officer Sicknick's wrongful death allegations against Trump marks the most serious accusation to date that the former president was liable for the January 6th insurrection. Now, Sicknick's attorney are asking the court for damages of more than $10 million. Trump already faces previous civil lawsuits brought by the Democratic lawmakers and other law enforcement officers who responded to the Capitol attacks. DC's Federal Court Appeals Court is considering whether to uphold a trial judge's ruling that Trump could be held liable for damages for his actions in the lead up to that insurrection. I do not like to say the word why that's an insurrection. Sorry, folks. I don't give a fuck you unsubscribe or subscribe. It was not a riot, it was an insurrection. If that lawsuit is successful, Sicknick's complaint is likely to follow in its legal footprints. Some of the same lawyers bringing the Sicknick case also brought that existing insurrection conspiracy case. Another lawyer involved in Sicknick's case has represented other Capitol officials following the attack. The criminal investigation around January 6th are ongoing, including the probe into Trump-supported bids to disrupt Joe Biden's win that is now being led by the special counsel Jack Smith. In recent weeks, prosecutors have taken new investigative steps, including obtaining documents from local election officials. Trump has not been criminally charged yet, but it will, and it's going to cause more of a problem, but who gives a shit? The motherfucker need to be charged for treason and insurrection. Okay. Now, that being said, this is the end of the New Year Weekly Update, number 70. Stay tuned. Sometime this week, maybe tomorrow, who knows, if I have time, I'll probably do another live stream. So, you guys will be free to watch the replay. And thank you again for participating and joining in. And have a good one.